अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी, क्या हाल है? मेरा नाम है वली शहजाद और हम हैं आज सोफिस प्रोडक्शंस में। और ये हमारा एक पॉडकास्ट है, बहुत स्पेशल आज की ओकेजन है क्योंकि मेरी मदर एक दफ़ा दोबारा सोफिस प्रोडक्शंस आई हैं एक बहुत स्पेशल आपको पॉडकास्ट देने। आज हम बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ों के बारे में बातें करेंगे जिसके अंदर यूक्रेन, रशिया, पाकिस्तान, चाइना, अमेरिका, ऐसे बहुत ज़्यादा इश्यूज आजकल चल रहे हैं। तो विदाउट फर्दर डू प्लीज़ वेलकम मिस अनीला। बताएं आप थोड़ा सा।
Assalamu alaikum. So nice to be here in your new this setup and best wishes for you and your podcast. So yes, we're going to talk about a lot of different things today, inshallah. So let's begin with Ukraine, I think.
हाँ, यूक्रेन एंड रशिया। वैसे आई वांट टू बिगिन विद पाकिस्तान के इश्यूज, बट स्टिल हम लोग यूक्रेन और रशिया से स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं। यूक्रेन और रशिया में अब हमारे 2-3 महीने की जंग के बाद क्या हो रहा है, क्या सिचुएशन है ग्राउंड?
मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया तो बहुत ज़्यादा, आप जो यूरोपियन एंड यूएस के जो मीडिया हाउसेस हैं, न्यूज़पेपर्स हैं, वो तो यही कह रहे हैं कि रशिया इज़ लाइक गोइंग टू बी डिफीटेड, उसको रिट्रीट करना पड़ेगा। लेकिन इन रियलिटी हो ये रहा है कि उन्होंने डोनेस्क को भी ले लिया है, उसके इर्द गिर्द के कुछ शहर हैं उनको भी ले लिया है, और अब वो उस एरिया से मज़ीद आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। तो ऐसा लग नहीं रहा है कि वो रिट्रीट की तरफ हैं। इस वक्त ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे कि वो एडवांस मोड में है। और आज ही आई थिंक सो ब्रिटेन के जो डिफेंस मिनिस्टर है, ही सेड दैट वी हैव टू बी रेडी फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम वॉर। उसने ये वार्न कर दिया है नेटो के अपने साथियों को कि वॉर इन्हें बहुत लंबा चलना है, और इसकी वजह से काफ़ी घबराहट सी हो गई है। ऐसा लग रहा है, ऐसी भी न्यूज़ आ रही हैं कि डिजर्शन शुरू हो गई हैं नेटो की फोर्सेस के अंदर। तो इट्स गोइंग टू बी वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट फॉर नेटो टू मतलब रेजिस्ट रशिया इन यूक्रेन, ऐसा लग रहा है। तो लेट्स सी हाउ स्ट्रॉन्ग दे कैन बी, एंड but we should discuss a little about the historical background of this whole thing.
But firstly I want to discuss कि we hear कि रशिया की जो फ़ौजें हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा डिमोरलाइज हैं और रशिया जो है वो रिट्रीट कर रहा है। फिर हम लोग ऑल्टरनेटिव मीडिया से सुनते हैं कि अमेरिका की जो फोर्सेस हैं वो अमेरिका का प्रोपेगेंडा है और जितने भी वेपन्स भेज रहे हैं वो लॉन्ग टर्म फाइट नहीं कर सकते यूक्रेनियंस। क्या ये बात सच है कि यूक्रेनियंस को सिर्फ उनके बंदे जा रहे हैं, उनकी जानें जा रही हैं, एंड यूक्रेन के अंदर जितने भी अमेरिका वेपन्स दे दे वो ये जंग को सिर्फ प्रोलॉन्ग कर सकते हैं मगर जीत नहीं सकते?
दैट इज़ द बेसिक थिंग जो हमें अंडरस्टैंड करनी चाहिए कि जैसे बिल्कुल वही एग्जांपल, जब अफ़गानिस्तान में वॉर हो रही थी तो हमारे मुल्क में ये बातें चल रही थी कि हम किसी और की जंग क्यों लड़ें। ठीक है, द सेम एग्जैक्ट थिंग इज़ हैपनिंग इन यूक्रेन कि जो असल लड़ाई है दैट इज़ बिटवीन रशिया एंड द यूएस एंड देयर नेटो एलाइज, और बीच में यूक्रेन को मतलब सफरिंग, सारी डिस्ट्रक्शन और सफरिंग और जो ऑन ग्राउंड बैटल है वो यूक्रेनियंस को लड़नी पड़ रही है। नाउ हु इज़ गोइंग टू विन एट द एंड? अगर रशिया जीतता है तो रशिया जीतेगा या नेटो जीतेगी, मगर यूक्रेन कभी भी नहीं जीतेगा इस जंग में, बिकॉज यूक्रेन उतने अरसे में उसकी सिटीज़ डिस्ट्रॉय हो चुकी होंगी, उसका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डिस्ट्रॉय हो चुका होगा, उसके लोग जो हैं वो भूख और इफ्लास की कैफियत में आ जाएंगे। सो इस तरह की जंग में लाइक ज़ेलेंस्की को मशवरा है मेरा कि मतलब प्लीज़ डोंट फाइट अनदर पर्सनस वॉर and don't make your people suffer just because मतलब Zelensky is actually a EU backed president जो कि प्रो रशियन प्रेसिडेंट को निकाल कर इसको लाया गया था। तो मतलब ही हैज़ दिस थिंग कि मैंने आई थिंक सो कि इसको लाने का मकसद ही ये था कि यूक्रेन को नेटो और EU के अंदर जो है ना मेंबरशिप इसकी करवाई जाए। बट द प्रॉब्लम इज़ कि अगर आप यूक्रेन की ज्योग्राफी देखें, उसकी हिस्ट्री देखें, तो वो बिल्कुल रशिया के साथ जुड़ा हुआ एक मुल्क है। उसकी तकरीबन आधी पॉपुलेशन जो है ना वो एथनिकली रशियन है। तो सारा उनकी ट्रेड जो है 90% ट्रेड उनकी हमेशा से मतलब हिस्टोरिकली रही है रशिया के साथ। तो जब उनकी सारे ताल्लुकात, उनकी सारी इकॉनमी, उनकी कॉमर्स, हर चीज़ रिलेटेड टू रशिया, तो व्हाट वाज द नीड कि जी अब वहाँ से जंप मार के और दे हैड टू गो एंड जॉइन द EU फॉर व्हाट पर्पस? It was only a political stunt. And एक्चुअली ज़ेलेंस्की को शायद मतलब वो उसका सियासी शायद बसीरत उसकी इतनी नहीं थी, लेकिन द थिंग इज़ कि जब से रशिया टूटा है, USSR की ब्रेक डाउन हुई है, और जब ये ब्रेक डाउन हो रही थी तभी रशिया ने EU के साथ, नेटो के साथ ये पैक्ट किया था कि एग्रीमेंट की थी कि जो हमारी ब्रोकन स्टेट्स हैं, जो हमारी पोस्ट सोवियत स्पेस है, उसको नेटो इन्वेड करने की कोशिश नहीं करेगा, उनको वैसे ही रहने दिया जाएगा। लेकिन क्या हुआ, नेटो ने एक एक करके जो ईस्टर्न यूरोप की पूरी स्ट्रिप ऑफ कंट्रीज़ है उन सब को नेटो ने अपने अंदर डालने की कोशिश की है। ऊपर के जो 3 स्टेट्स हैं, लातविया, एस्टोनिया और लिथुआनिया, ये तीनों नेटो के मेंबर बन चुके हैं। पोलैंड ऑलरेडी नेटो का मेंबर है, और इन्होंने, नेटो ने बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल्स इन कंट्रीज़ में आकर के लगा दिए। और जाहिर है रशिया फील्स थ्रेटन्ड कि मेरे बिल्कुल बॉर्डर कंट्रीज़ के ऊपर अगर आप मिसाइल सिस्टम्स लगा रहे हो, नेटो के मिसाइल सिस्टम्स, तो डेफिनेटली रशिया इज़ गोइंग टू फील जिटरी एंड वल्नरेबल कि किसी भी वक्त मेरे ऊपर अटैक हो सकता है। और यूक्रेन, जिसका मैं बता रही हूँ कितना कल्चरल लाइक एफिलिएशन है रशिया के साथ हिस्टोरिकली, उस यूक्रेन को अगर वो इन्वेड कर लेंगे, नेटो अपने अंदर जम कर लेगा, और उनके बैलिस्टिक मिसाइल्स यूक्रेन के अंदर इंस्टॉल जब हो जाएंगे, तो दैट दे आर दोज मिसाइल्स आर गोइंग टू बी ओनली 200 or 300 kilometers away from Moscow. And this is something that Russia does not allow. वो नहीं देखते अपने फ्यूचर को सिक्योर इस तरीके से।
बहुत ज़्यादा आपने इन्फॉर्मेशन दे दी है एक छोटे से क्वेश्चन के ऊपर। बहुत ज़्यादा इन सारी बातों में पॉइंट्स हैं जो हम लोग हाईलाइट करना चाहते हैं। एंड एक और बात जो मैं अभी बात करते हुए नोटिस कर रहा था कि दीज आर वेरी हॉट टॉपिक्स एंड ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड पीपल वांट टू नो व्हाट पाकिस्तानीज फील अबाउट दिस। सो आई डोंट नो if we should do this in English or if we should do this in Urdu.
Right.
If anyone is in the audience listening and seeing this podcast, you can comment and tell us which language do you want. So for the sake of foreign people to understand us, let's switch to English language. And firstly, I want to ask about the character Mr. Zelensky. Mr. Zelensky seems like a guy who was a celebrity, and he, after his hit season in which he became the president, he switched towards politics.
Yeah.
He turned his media house into a political campaign, and he won the elections. But it seems like Zelensky is a Jew. And it seems like that there is a special battalion in the Ukrainian army who is influenced by the neo-Nazis, who has the Nazi swastika on their flags. And recently there was this news that due to Russian propaganda, the Ukrainian battalion had to remove the swastikas from their uniforms or whatever.
Yeah.
And very recently there is a girl who won swimming or boxing, I don't know, we'll link the description of the article in the link below. And she had a flag with a Ukrainian flag with the swastika, and there's like too much resemblance. Maybe these people are following Hitler's ideology and they're fighting with Putin because of this neo-Nazi culture. What do you say about that?
Well, I'm not really sure about this Nazi culture. Yes, I've read about this, but I didn't take a very serious note on this. But yes, NATO is going to use all kind of propaganda, all kind of things that could attract the Ukrainian people into the war. because you know the US and the NATO, what I usually say, they love to have wars in other people's lands. They love to like pour in weapons. They don't have money to buy baby formula for the US kids, right? Babies. And they are giving $50 billion for this war and weapons that are going to go into Ukraine. So this is like this swastika thing and this propaganda thing is like a very small element of what I think the NATO is up to. The NATO is up to like having one war after the other, one war after another, and the message from my side to the whole Eastern Europe belt is that you guys are letting NATO in and they are going to put their weapons. You know, when a country becomes a member of the NATO, then they are giving all power of their foreign policy to NATO. Strategic and foreign policy all goes into the pocket of NATO. Now, those countries will not decide how they are going to do their wars. Those countries are not going to decide how they are going to interact with Russia or anybody else in the world. The EU and the NATO, they are going to decide their foreign policies. So what they are doing is that this Britain and France and Germany, the big, big fat hand countries that have all the weapons, that have all the technology, that have all the luxuries of their lives, and they are at the top of this economic, pyramid. And on the other hand, this whole belt of Eastern European countries, they are not rich people. Those countries are poor countries. They have not been on that industrial development model because they have traditionally been part of Russia, number one, and they have been part of the Orthodox Church, which is, Russia claims that it is the protector of the Orthodox Church, and these all people, which I was saying, Germany, France, these are all of the Protestant Church. Those are progressive people, and these Orthodox people, they have always been like not very progressive. They have been like farming type, agriculture type people, and like subsistence farming type of people. So what the NATO and EU is going to lure them, that if you become part of NATO and the EU, you're going to become rich and just like us, and we're going to support you. But that's not what they actually do. All they do is they bring you into NATO, and then they put their ballistic missiles on your borders, and they make you vulnerable to war. They're going to make your country a war zone, one after the other. So Zelensky has fallen into that trap, actually. He has just, I don't know what bribe or mental bribe he was given, that joining NATO or joining EU is going to bring all the riches to the Ukrainian people, but that was never going to happen, and that has not happened. Now you are inside a war, and the whole of this European, Germany, British, France, all of them, what are they doing? Are they coming to fight for you? No. Are they giving you money for your food? Are they giving you all the riches that they promised you? No, they're not giving you anything. All they're giving you is more weapons to fight. So, I mean, that's my message to Ukraine, because Pakistan, has been a country who has been pushed into another people's war already. Like, there was this Russia-Afghan war, then there was this US invasion of Afghanistan, and we were like direct, first door neighbors of Afghanistan, and therefore we were directly influenced by that war, and we had to fight that war, another people's war, So the whole of Eastern Europe countries, like down to Moldova, because after Ukraine, they're saying that Moldova is going to be the next target. Because Russia doesn't feel safe unless Ukraine and Moldova are both part of Russia.
That's a point. First point that you highlighted, that they tried to take Putin's church away from him, because before the war, we heard that the church was on the side of NATO. And then the other point that you raised, that is this like a religious war? Some say that the conflict does not only stem from a political background, it could be a religious thing as well, which is happening. Then Putin has, some people are predicting that Putin has gone mad. There's this whole US propaganda that due to COVID and because because Putin was already very paranoid and he had cancer as well, so he stopped meeting everyone, and his mental health has deteriorated. That's why he attacked Ukraine. And then there's this insane thing that Putin wants to have the Greater Russia, or the Soviet Russia, the pride and the honor and all the land. But what we see is that Putin had repeatedly warned the US and the NATO allies to stop interfering in Ukraine, to stop putting their weapons in Ukraine. What kind of a guy is Zelensky's? I also want to shed some light on Zelensky, because what we have heard that when the war started, Zelensky banned all the other political parties. What could have Zelensky done if your country, if our country is in a war situation? Do we just give up our weapons? There was a time when Pakistan was fighting Russia. Maybe that was a proxy war in Afghanistan, but we never gave up. So, how do we? Is there a Ukrainian integrity? Do we believe that there is a solution with war, or can everything be done
I
by
think you're
dialogue?
asking one question after another, and I don't know how I'm going
Because
to.
you answered a lot of answers.
The first thing you said was, is this war have a religious aspect? I think yes, there is a religious aspect, because the whole Eastern European belt is Orthodox Christians. And what is this religious aspect? The religious aspect is this, that these Protestant rich countries are pushing this Orthodox belt of countries into into war zones for their own fun, I think. Nobody is going to pick even a stick in France or Britain or Germany, and or their other friends, Sweden, Finland, all those rich countries. They are going to just sit there in front of their TV sets and their mobiles, and they're going to watch the war on their screens. And who's going to be really fighting those wars? Whose houses are going to be destroyed? Whose buildings are going to be destroyed? Whose men and children and women, they are going to be bombed? Those are going to be these. So this is the religious aspect. Now, if maybe somebody would say that the Orthodox Church is dying or whatever, but they have put life back into it, because now Putin has this legitimacy that you are Protestants, Orthodox people, we are Orthodox, and we're going to come and save you. So that's the one thing. Then there is also an economic aspect. What is that economic aspect? Like I'm just saying that all these Protestant people, they are rich countries, and all these Orthodox long belt of Eastern European countries, all of them are poor countries. So the rich people, countries are imposing or pushing these already poor people into wars, just because to please their egos, that they want to win over Russia. I mean, this is, and it's not only just that they have dragged all these countries into NATO. I mean, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, these are all in NATO. And then I'm not remembering more countries.
Moldova could be.
Moldova, I think, is already in NATO. Only Ukraine and Belarus, they are the two countries that are left. And what happens is that NATO and EU and the US, they have brought in colored revolutions in all these countries. And they have backed the regime change in all these countries. All of these countries initially had leftist, like socialist, pro-Russian governments, and then they brought these colored revolutions. They brought these revolutions with the help of Facebook, Twitter, and then all those, the like the Euromaidan in Ukraine and all those. So what they do is they make this hybrid warfare, you call that, and then this revolution come in these countries, and the pro-Russian regimes are toppled, and pro-EU, pro-NATO regimes are installed in there. So Russia was looking at this for a long time. It was seeing color revolutions in like all the way from Kyrgyzstan to this Belarus. There was a revolution in Belarus, in Ukraine, in all of these countries. So Russia was like not thinking maybe that it is powerful enough to resist these revolutions. But in the last, you can say, 10 years, a decade, after the US seemed to be like failing in Afghanistan, when after it had to leave Iraq, it had to abandon Iraq, and then it had to abandon Syria. What happened in these 10 years is that Russia interfered in Iraq, it interfered in Syria, it even interfered in Libya, and in all these war zones, the wars were abducted from the NATO US allies, and Russia and Turkey and Iran, I mean, they got to like control these battle zones. So Russia started thinking that, no, I am powerful enough to like fight them off, to defeat them, to confront them. So right after the US withdrew from Afghanistan in August, right after that Putin started saying that I'm going to like attack Ukraine unless Ukraine gives me in return that they are not going to join NATO and they're not going to join EU. So now comes in Zelensky's part. Now Zelensky knew that his country is first door neighbor with Russia. He knew that half of his population is ethnically Russian. He knew that all his economy, all his commerce is related and being done with Russia. And he knew that all these gas pipelines that they are taking like rent from that are going to Europe are coming from Russia. So anybody would know that my country, my people will benefit by staying with Russia. And in spite of repeated threats, Zelensky said, no, we are going to join NATO, we are going to join NATO. So this is what happened then.
But we could still say that Zelensky is trying to protect his own people. Or should he just have said that we won't join it? Why hasn't Putin won in Russia?
In Ukraine?
In Ukraine, yeah. That's a major question. And plus, from what we're seeing, giving all those weapons to the Ukrainians, some of the weapons are landing in the wrong in the hands of the wrong people. There's mass violence and there's mass robbery in Ukrainian areas where civilians are living, and most of the civilians are being used as a human shield. And that is just what is happening in Ukraine. But because of US's and Europe's involvement in Ukraine, The sanctions they're putting on Russia, some of the sanctions are backfiring, like the gas prices, like the price of wheat, like the price of fertilizers. All of these things that Ukraine and Russia were producing are now not
Reaching
reaching
Europe or the other
Europe.
countries,
Yeah.
yes.
So why isn't Russia winning? Why? What the US could have done differently? And do you think that the US is winning, or are all the sanctions being backfired? Is there a move against de-dollarization in the whole world?
Well, the first thing is that is Russia winning or is the US winning? Well, we can't say right now. Right now, we know that Russia has occupied most of the eastern part of Ukraine, which were already pro-Russian, which already have have ethnically Russian population. So those states, Donetsk and a few others there, they are already under Russia's like invasion, you can say. The other thing is that you asked that the way war is being conducted, this is a conventional war that's being like done over there. So whenever there's a conventional war, buildings are going to be destroyed, things are going to be bombed down. So this is exactly the way war was made in Syria. Whole cities were destroyed. Matlab
Infrastructure was
the
destroyed.
whole infrastructure, the whole cities became rubbles in Libya, in Syria, in Iraq, and those cities are still in rubble. Nobody has come forward to rebuild or reconstruct those cities. So yes, that is the way war is being conducted, even though we say that this is the nuclear arms era or that, but nobody is using the nuclear arms. Everybody is going matlab resorting back into the conventional war system. So yes, that is very sad. That is
what I've heard from the news is that Biden is slowly starting to recognize that he can't win this war. He's just delaying the process, killing more Ukrainians, and now Putin is saying things against Zelensky, the guy who he was praising. So Zelensky is also just like a pawn in the big game. USA or Europe does not care who Zelensky is, what he does. They just want to use it and throw him away.
Yeah.
And
because all these governments or regimes that the US they install after toppling the original regimes, they are all puppet regimes. They're always just there so that they can be used. And the moment their uselessness is going to end, they are going to be removed and others will come.
And the other thing you talked about was the nuclear option. Now Putin has repeatedly said, I think every day, twice a day, that I'm gonna use my nuclear option. I'm gonna use some tactical nuclear bombs in Ukraine, and if there's no NATO involvement, I'm gonna nuke them also. And those won't be tactical nuclear bombs. Those will be long-range intercontinental ballistic missiles. So what we're hearing is that if Putin uses a big nuclear bomb in Ukraine, then Russia can't escape that nuclear bomb, because most of these cities are too close to Russia. And when they were testing bombs in America, they had what is it called, nuclear winter in Sweden and all these European places, because the air is the same. All the nuclear waste travels from one place to another, and Russia is very susceptible if they use that nuclear bomb. But then again, if this is a nuclear war and if this is the start of the World War III, what do you think? Is that just like fear mongering, or could this
Yes.
accelerate to something really big?
Actually, I think that it's just threats. I hope, and everybody, all the humanity is going to hope that never happens, because once one person is going to push that button, others are going to do that too, because there's going to be no end to this then. But yes, the way NATO has been provoking Russia, they have the way they have been bringing one country after another into the encirclement of NATO. And now, today there was this news that they have blocked the railway line that is going into Kaliningrad, that small piece of Russian land which is apart from Russia, is behind these Estonia, Lithuania, and this small patch. Now that small patch is has a coast on the Baltic Sea. So that means things are going to be maybe bought or brought into Russia through Kaliningrad and going through the railway line and crossing these countries and coming to Ukraine or Russia. So NATO has told, I think that's Lithuania, to cut those the railway lines. So what they're doing is that NATO has expanded the war. The war is no longer just inside Ukraine; it's outside. That Lithuania and this Kaliningrad are now also part of the war. So if the war is going to be expanded, then they are calling for a big war. No? They are calling for a nuclear war. So this is not the right way to go. What NATO should do is finish the war inside Ukraine, and like resolve it over there. Now, the more they're going to expand, they're going to say, okay, we're going to bring a force in Moldova, we're going to bring a force in Lithuania, and then everybody is going to attack Ukraine from these 4 or 5 countries. Then that means that the NATO is expanding the war. So that's criminal.
That's
and
very bad.
I am like it seems like I'm talking pro Russia. The reason being is that I think that the NATO and US, their allies, they have been provoking Russia.
The Russians.
They have fear. They are afraid of Russia, and they are constantly nagging this country. They are constantly trying to put barriers and sanctions and barriers on their way, and they are like trying to encircle Russia. Like Russia is the villain of the world, and they have to just come and like kill this villain. So if you're going to act like that, then Russia is going to react.
So we've heard that if Russia takes over Ukraine, next is Moldova, then Lithuania, then Estonia. So Russia is not stopping at Ukraine.
Well, that's just a theory, That's just a theory. If Zelensky says today that we are not going to join NATO, we are not going to join EU, and we write this on paper, maybe the war is going to end just over there. So this is a theory and a propaganda that Putin is not going to stop. Is Putin an imperialist, or is the US an imperialist, or is the EU the imperialist?
From what I've heard, that there is this large belt on the Russian border, which is low land area, flat land, and Russia can protect all of that land. So it needs some strategic advantage for that. It has to go towards Lithuania, and from here, Ukraine and Moldova. It has to cover all the area to protect itself.
This is called the Great European Plain. And it starts after the Carpathian Mountains. This is a belt of Carpathian Mountains, and then this Great European Plain starts, and it goes on across Ukraine and into Russia, and goes up to these Ural Mountains that are inside Russia. So this is a big plain area, which is, because it's a plain area, is for that reason it is overpopulated. It's highly populated, and it is also the breadbasket of like the world. I mean, that's why this wheat crisis has come up, because Ukraine was producing so much of wheat because of this plain area. Now, what you were saying is that Russia feels that as long as Ukraine and Moldova, these 2 countries, are part of that great European plain, forces from the EU and NATO can cross the Carpathian and enter this Ukraine and Moldova and attack Russia, because this very long belt of 200 kilometers, I think, long border is really difficult to defend for Russia. So this is a theory that Russia wants to cross Ukraine and Moldova and reach the Carpathian Mountains so that this natural barrier can protect it from attack of the EU or the NATO allies. So this is another theory. I mean,
And the a very valid point. The next point I wanted to highlight is that today I read this story that Biden is almost at the brink of mental. His mental health is on a serious decline. He can't
even say
say a single sentence.
Yeah.
So one thing is that. Then the other thing is that I read the storyline as well today. A major newspaper, they're saying that US is 13 days away from a major financial collapse because there's a lot of inflation going on, and 4th of July is the day when the Americans fill their tanks up, have a lot of food for barbecues, and get stuff from the supermarkets, gifts, a lot of gifts, and there's not enough things in the economy. There's not enough petrol in the economy, not enough gas, not enough toys, not enough everything. So if there's a huge purchase in a single day, the whole economy is going to collapse. What we saw before the coronavirus, I don't know if you should say that word. Our podcast might get banned. What we were hearing was China attacking Taiwan. And the US had made this whole propaganda against China that China is going to attack Taiwan, and we should have some navy vessels in the South China Sea. And now suddenly, out of nowhere, Russia attacks Ukraine, and China is like the good guy now. And suddenly, there's a lot of economic entanglement between the US and the China. If China goes down, the US goes down. So they don't want to just give everything away. And why isn't China attacking Taiwan? That's the point. They have got such a clear opportunity. Maybe the US is going through a major recession, and they're fighting a very big war. Every other day they're giving $30-40 billion worth of ammunition. So what's happening? What's the big game?
The first thing is that yes, Biden is at a verge. And the second thing is that the cancer thing about Putin, that was just, I think that was not even for a week in the news. I don't think he has a cancer because he was working and giving statements right after those newses. And yes, there is a very basic difference between Russia and China. Like they are two different people, two different cultures, two different nations. Now, Russia has always been a fighting type of country. It has always gone for invasions. The way Russia expands itself is always like making itself bigger and bigger and bigger. Like it expands around its borders. That's something different about Russia compared to the colonial expansions of Britain and Germany and France, who jumped out of their countries and went all over the world to colonize people. But Russia, in those same days, they expanded around their own like border. That's the difference. And what about China? China is totally different. It is a docile country. It has never invaded another country. It has never attacked another country. It has border issues with India, but it has never gone for an all-out war with India. It has tried to use other means. The same thing is with Taiwan. China thinks that Taiwan is a part of China. It is a province of China. But it was separated because on the behest of the US. They created China as a separate country. But the way China has dealt with Taiwan is that they have since their own industrial revolution, since their own economic becoming of this economic giant, they have done a lot of businesses. They have opened their doors for Taiwanese peoples, that you can come, you can go, and you can do business with us, and you can make China your industrial background if you want to. So these people are now having so much trade with each other, and so much already they had cultural links and ties, and China does not need to attack Taiwan to have influence on it. It already has influence on this country. I mean, this is called I think it's called political economy. China has used economic methods to get political influence inside Taiwan. So Taiwan being a first door neighbor of China, and China being its giant neighbor, and economically a very strong neighbor, and militarily very strong neighbor, Taiwan would know that it is going to be suicide for it to ever think of attacking China. So there's no chance for that to happen. So China doesn't need to attack Taiwan. If it wants Taiwan, it's just have to shake hands with it, and that's exactly what it has done. So this is actually U.S. propaganda, that it provokes Taiwan, it provokes the issue, it wants there to be a war. The Taiwanese people know that if there's going to be a war, then they're going to die. They're going to be destroyed. China is going to bomb them, and the US is going to use Taiwan as a bouncing board to attack China. So there's no fun for the Taiwanese in this war. So that's the thing. I think China would never use this method unless it's the last thing it has to do. Otherwise, it's going to use other means
to influence
to influence and get Taiwan back.
So coming to Pakistan, what do you think Pakistan is going through? And recently we have our president removed because he went to Russia when Russia attacked Ukraine. And then there's also an economic turmoil happening. Today the dollar was exchanging 217
in some places in Pakistan, yes.
In Pakistan, and gold is reaching an all-time high. So what is going to happen in the future? What's the game plan for Pakistan?
Well, this is very, very sad that we're talking about this thing, and it hurts me a lot because the US was inside Afghanistan for 20 years, and Pakistan's army, the people of Pakistan have gone through a lot just for standing with their brothers in Afghanistan, with the Taliban regime, with the Mujahideens of Afghanistan against the United States. And we knew in the deep of our hearts that if the US succeeds in Afghanistan, Pakistan is going to be the next in line, and they're going to attack Pakistan too, and they're going to break it into pieces. Because getting Afghanistan was never the end game, and the end goal was the Arabian waters, the warm waters of the Arabian Sea. So after going through this long war against the US in Afghanistan, and with God's blessing winning this war, how could Pakistan think of getting influenced by the US again? And how could any sector inside Pakistani society allow there to be a US-backed regime change in Pakistan? This is so sad, and I of all people, and most Pakistanis, we are feeling helpless today. How are we going to get a democratically elected person who's going to stand for the welfare of the people of this land. Like what happened when the US had to withdraw from Afghanistan. What happened was that Pakistan was already friends with China. Pakistan was already becoming friends with Russia. Pakistan was coming closer to Iran. There was good diplomacy going between Pakistan and Iran. And the Taliban regime that had come in place after the US withdrawal was very, very pro-Pakistan. So the whole region around Pakistan was Pakistan friendly at that time, at that moment. We were like in paradise of economic growth, progress, possibilities, because CPEC would start running, because another corridor, CPEC corridor, CPEC affiliated corridor coming through Afghanistan was going to be formed. Another corridor coming through Iran was going to form. And these corridors were going to be connected to Russia. And then they would go all the way into Europe. So we were going towards that, like what do you call, economic prospect of the progress and like fulfillment that any of Pakistani would have been dreaming for the last 70 years. We were at that point. So what we had to do, that we had to make this region, this is not the time of a unipolar world, Unipolarism, unilateralism is dying. And multipolarism and and regionalism is coming to the fore now. So what Pakistan was going to do, what Pakistan was seeing in its very near future was this regionalism with Pakistan and Afghanistan in the middle. Like we were friends for China, we were friends for Russia, and this was going to become such a strong and big regional force. But that is exactly what the US could not stand. They considered China and Russia their number one enemies. They want them like destroyed, and they would never allow Russia to expand its regionalism or China to expand its regionalism. But that's the so sad thing about this whole thing, that we were going to do it. We're going to make it. The Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, when he went to Russia on the eve when Russia was going to attack Ukraine, like the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, definitely he did not knew, or he was not informed that the Putin is going to push that war button right on that evening. Like that is something, bad that happened. But the intention of the PM was to extend trade with Russia, extend bilateralism with Russia, and make this a peaceful, bigger, stronger region. Because Russia and Afghanistan and Pakistan, when we join hands, all this belt of Central Asian countries, that comes in between us, and we become one region. So this was a big thing that was going to happen. This was a big thing for Pakistan. And this was a future that we would be looking forward to, and we should still be looking forward to. And the only thing that's coming in our way is this US interference in our politics, in our national politics, in our sovereign politics, Russian interference and its regime change. It has toppled our democratically elected government, and this is a crime, this is a sin. We will never, nobody, no patriot of Pakistan will ever forgive US for this thing. They lost the war, and then they backstabbed us again. they never accept their loss, that they have lost. They always keep backstabbing, re-entering the war zones.
So, what's the future? Is Pakistan going to still align with the Russians? Are we going to import oil from there? Are we going to import wheat?
Like this,
And what about the CPEC? I've heard that CPEC is on a backtrack,
Yeah.
not moving forward.
the
And they've
first day,
cancelled.
this new government came, they closed the CPEC authority, and they went straight to the IMF. I mean, what is the IMF? Why does everybody have to go to the IMF and beg for their charity and beg for their approval? Why? IMF did, you know what they said to Pakistan, to this new government, that the puppet government that they have installed, they told them, you will not do business with Russia, you will not do business with China, and you are going to end all these subsidies that you are giving to your people. I mean, the same shitty things that IMF does with one country after another. Many countries have kicked the IMF out of their countries. And the same thing was being tried to be done by the previous Imran Khan government. They were they had cornered the IMF. They were doing business with them, but at a very limited way. And the moment this new government came in, they have just sold their people, sold the welfare of their people to this IMF. For what? What do we get in return from IMF? Nothing. Except insurance for those puppet leaders to remain. That's the only thing that IMF gives you in return. Nothing else.
So, what do you think about the future? Is the future bright for Pakistan?
I don't know.
And
I just, my fingers are crossed, and I'm hoping that Imran Khan would return. The people, with their power, are going to back Imran Khan, and the people are going to bring him back. Not because the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or Imran Khan, they are he is the leader, but the real thing that we need is our independence, our sovereignty, our own power upon our foreign policy, and a person who can stand and look in the eyes of the IMF, a person who can stand and look in the eyes of the Americans, that no, we are going to make our own decisions. A person who can stand and look in the eyes of India, that no, we are not intimidated by your threats and your methods. So why I am pro Imran Khan? Because this is the leader who facilitated the end of the Afghan war, which was a 20 years long war. I mean, several governments came and went, but nobody could have this strength or resolve to back the peace process in a way that they were forced. The US was forced to leave. They would never leave. They love wars. They love to destroy other people's lands. They love to make war in other people's lands. That's what they do. So yes, I am hopeful for the future of Pakistan if we get back a sovereign, a leader, an independent, a open-minded leader, a leader who thinks about his people, the welfare of their people. And right now, Imran Khan seems to be the only choice, and I hope and I wish that there were more choices.
I wish that too. So, what do you want to talk about next? Where we talked about Pakistan, we talked about China and Russia, and what about the rest of the world? Do you see people leaning towards more, is there a bifurcation in the economy and in the politics and between nations, that there's going to be blocks with
Yeah.
Russia and China, and then there's going to be blocks with Europe and America, and it seems like that Pakistan, even if it seems that Russia could give us cheap oil and wheat, and China could give us a lot of products, it seems like that the US and European bloc is much stronger. And
Well,
if you are not in that group, then there's a lot of sanctions. There's a lot of technology that they'll not give you, and there's going to be a lot of problems. Look at what happened to Russia in like a few days. They cut off all the businesses, and then there's such a big media that the media engine that these people have, in which Russia is now like a country which
villainized.
villainized, yes. So which block should we be moving further, and how's the world going to divide?
Yes, the world is getting divided because of regionalism. The new theory in this geopolitics is that unipolar world cannot survive, and it is ending. So when the unipolar superpower, the US, is going to come down, then there's not going to be any other one single entity that is going to become the sole superpower of the world. So what is going to happen because of all this technology and advancements and all this globalization of trade and all these things, there are going to be different sets of countries who are going to become regional groups, regional entities, and they are going to be dominated by their own single regional superpower. Like China would want to be the biggest power in its imagined region, and Russia would want to be the superpower in its imagined region. The same way India wants to be the superpower of its imagined region. So this is a problem. This can be a problem in the future because of the reason that Asia is being portrayed as the next economic powerhouse of the next century. Like it's going to be the Asian centuries being called. The next century is being called the Asian century. So the Asia is going to be the hub of progress, growth, economic growth, and if that happens, I mean, these three countries that I just mentioned are neighbors. And it's going to be a big clash because if India wants to be a regional power, China wants to be a regional power, Russia wants to be a regional power, that's going to be a very big clash over there. But what is positive is that China and Russia, they have learned their lessons. They were like not friends, good friends, something 2 3 decades ago, but now they have learned their lesson that if they join their strategies, if they join their economic and strategic goals, then they can really like make difference. And that's what happened, that China silently backed Russia in all its adventures inside Iraq, inside Syria, inside Libya, and it quietly backed Russia. And Russia quietly backed China's Belt and Road program. The Belt and Road program is going all the way through Russia and going into Europe. And it's going to it's going to connect Russia and the Central Asian countries and Afghanistan and Pakistan. So if China and Russia manage to keep together, then there is no question that India could rise as a regional power. And if that is so, if we are friends with Russia and China, then we are part of a regional strength, you know. So that's the problem. The US is not ready to let go its unilateral, uni superpower role. It is so like matlab, not ready to let people have their freedoms, to let people have their own integrities and sovereignties and decision making powers. It wants to be everybody's like a policeman everywhere. No, so that's the thing. If the things are going to go the way I'm saying towards regionalism, and if this puppet regime is going to go away, then this whole region with Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the Central Asian countries in the middle is going to become the strongest regional entity of the world, and maybe Russia or maybe China are going to be leading this region.
I understand that because most of the population of the world exists in this area, and we're working more and harder and earning less just so that Europeans and Americans can afford their luxury lifestyles. And all the cheap labor is happening from Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, India,
India, yes.
and all of these people are enjoying our mehnat. What do we call that?
We are working to fill their pockets, and
Yes.
so I think you're better judge of the economic thing, like what's happening. I mean, where is the U.S. economy going? Where is the EU economy going? They are, matlab, at the verge of like this crisis or something. Why don't you tell us?
Yeah, I just want to add to that since 40 years people are saying that the US economy is going to lose its reserve status. The US dollar is going to lose its reserve status, but the point still remains that there is a lot of foreign investment in the USA and all of the system, because still, while we know that there's a lot of potential in Pakistan, China, India, Russia, but the rich class, they still feel that whoever makes a lot of money in Pakistan would go to Europe and US to invest their money in all these big companies for some reason or another. So a lot of other countries, the whole world has its 60% of its wealth in dollars. There's this one thing that we say that there's a lot of potential over here, and then there's this other thing that all the rich class and the elite class are still going towards US and Europe and investing over there, investing their money in all these big companies, while not seeing what talent we have over here and what Pakistanis could do. We don't see any big companies in Pakistan. We're starting to see big companies in China. So hopefully that is going to change. But what I think that America's going to suffer, and America's going to make the whole world suffer with it before falling down. And then there's this other thing as well, that America is standing on the top of the hill, and there's no way that America is going to get down from that hill unless someone pushes America from that hill. And that person that will push America would be China. And how would China push America? That's a war, maybe a nuclear war that the
Not
US.
a trade war.
Not a trade war. So maybe we're in the start of the World War III, and maybe China and USA are going to be face to face. But I hope that does not happen. I hope that.
No, but before that nuclear war happens, because that's going to be the end of humanity as we know it. Before that happens, don't you think that the US and even many European countries are going to go into that economic crisis, which is going to become their graves, maybe?
Yes, I do think that they're going to go through a major economic recession. But what we don't see is that we are all dependent on the USA. And
It's dollars.
it's dollars, and for that to change, it's going to take a long while. For us to get out of the system, it's going to take a lot of years. and it's going to take a lot of structural changes. So that is what's happening. There's a lot of inflation in the USA, but the whole world is getting affected by that, because if you print too many dollars and there's too many dollars in the whole world, then the whole economy is gonna go. Do we have an alternative system? That's
Yes.
what we're asking.
That's what happens when you come towards regionalism. Like when China and Russia are going to be on top of this region, what they're going to, because they are constantly being bombarded with sanctions, both these big countries and others, or even Iran, even other, so many countries are being hit by these sanctions, and all these countries are working countries, they are growing countries, they have people, they have progress, they have industrialization and everything. So what they are thinking and what they think about every day is that why do we have to depend on this dollar thing? Why can't we make our own system? Like if we have this one big region, we can trade between us in our own currencies, or maybe the Chinese ruble. I think it's ruble, yen,
Yeah.
whatever. So that is the thought on top of everybody's mind right now, that if we are really a region, then we can have a trade within us. We don't need to do trade in dollars, or those things.
But still, the whole world thinks that USA is not that transparent, but it's more transparent than China and Russia. The systems that Russia and China are providing are going to be worse than the system that the USA has. And a lot of people still trust USA, the dollar, over the yen or the ruble. Now we're seeing that there's a shift, a gradual shift. Like the Saudis are saying that we don't want dollars. We could exchange our oil for gold, for Russian rubles. The Russian president has said that you can exchange rubles for gold, and there's this China is already buying the petrol in yuan, petro yuan. That's they're saying. Still,
Yes.
still,
That's possible when
still,
you.
it is possible. I guess I could say it's possible, but it's not like a legitimate system we have right now.
No, it's not like that. Actually, the US is the biggest thief of the world. We all know that. So it's only a matter of perception. It's only a matter of trust. Everybody's trusting the dollar right now. But once people lose that trust because of any reason, once people who are starting to do business in these other currencies, when they see that their money is safe and their money is coming back to them, I think it's not going to take a lot of time to do that. But it's this thing is there, that these capitalist country who have all this media engine you was just saying, that they portray and they bomb on the minds of the people that is the only system, the capitalist system, the US based dollar system is the only possible system, and everything else is just dangerous. So this is the thing, that we have to have alternative. If we want to have an alternative economic or currency basket, maybe we have to have an alternative media basket first. So
Yes, we're right.
so that
we're right.
people's minds perceptions can be changed. So I think every country should be allowed to do business with its own currency. Like all trade can be bilateral. At least all the trade that is bilateral. Like if you're buying something from a country and selling something to them, then you can use your own currencies.
What's been working for the last 10,000 years is gold. Gold hasn't lost its value, and gold is still an important asset. But there's no economy in the whole world that could have a currency system that is backed by gold, because there's too little gold and the whole world's economy is too big.
The reason for that is that since the dollar has become the currency, international currency of the world, what the US has been doing is that they have been printing billions and trillions of dollars, which was not backed by any gold. So they have flooded the world market with a currency that is like totally superfluous. It has no gold at its back. So that's the reason why there is less gold, real money, and there is so much of this artificial money, which definitely cannot be replaced by gold anymore. Unless we decide one day that all this paper is junk, throw it away, and make gold coins now, then that is going to be the real currency.
What if you have to close half of the world's businesses to do that?
Yeah.
That's a dangerous thought.
Yeah, maybe. Because
So-
I'm not an economist, so
So how would you like to end this podcast? This has been an amazing podcast, and just for the viewers that we've been not doing our podcast for like a few months, and in the past week I've done like 3 podcasts. This is the 4th one, so we're coming back with some improved system. We've got these mics and these tables and these cameras now, and we'll be posting our podcasts. I think twice or thrice a week. We're moving towards a live session as well, in which you guys can ask us questions and we could reply live on air. And hopefully we're gonna be more prompt in our uploadings. And how would you like to end this podcast, on a positive note or on a
Yes.
negative note? The points that we have discussed today are very grim, and the world does not, the next 10 years and the next 5 years do not seem like it's going to be a nice time. It seems like the economy is going to fall. It's going to be a lost decade, and there might be a major war, or this Ukrainian war could go on to something big, and there's this whole shift in what people used to believe and what they're believing now. So what's your outlook for the next few years?
I just have this message for Zelensky and for all the people of the world, that we need to know what is good for our people. We need to start thinking for ourselves, each country, and we need to stop fighting other people's wars, and we need to recognize the US and the NATO as an imperialist force and as a exploitative force, and we need to tell ourselves that we don't need to be so much rich that that the whole FDI flows should come to our country. We can starve. We can stay a little poorer, but we need our freedoms. We need our sovereignties. We need to know that we exist, and we should not sell our souls to this war game machine. And we have suffered in Afghanistan, many other countries where proxy wars have been fought for the last so many years, last few decades. They have all suffered because they were victims of wars that were going to be won by other people. So this is my first message, and my second message is to the people of Pakistan, that this is a time that we need to stand up against foreign intervention, regime change. That is absolutely not acceptable. We are sovereign people. We took our independence from the British 70 years ago, more than 70 years ago. We stood at that time, and our leaders stood at that time, and we told the people, the Hindu majority of the subcontinent, that no, we are not a minority, we are a nation. A Muslim nation stood against the Hindu nation in the subcontinent. We became independent at that time, and then our independence has been constantly being abducted by one power or the other. Puppet regimes are set in our country to fulfill the interest of these big imperialist powers. So, the people of Pakistan, please wake up, all of you. We should all think and act to secure our sovereignty,
That's a
our
very
freedom, our liberties.
that's a
Yeah.
very positive message, and I hope that all of you were listening to this very carefully. So nice having you,
Thank you for having me.
and have a great day. And
Thank you.
we hope that you come again
Inshallah.
to this podcast.
Yeah.
We had a lovely conversation. We hope to all our audience, wish you all the best and wish you are safe, wish you are away from all this economic turmoil and all these wars, and wish you a great next 5 or 10 years. So bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.